Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. Welcome to season 10 of the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We are so excited to start season 10, episode 221. We can't even believe it. Sean is actually traveling today, but we were so anxious to get the season started that we wanted to get it going no matter where he is.
Can you tell me one thing you're excited about when it comes to season 10?
Dude, I'm just excited to create again. There's a lot of unknowns for this season. There's a lot of topics that we haven't nailed down, guests that we haven't nailed down yet. But I know, having done this 9 other times, that it always comes together in the end. And it's not always anything we expect. And we always learn a whole lot every season. And we always feel like we're on the verge of running out of things to talk about. And it always turns out that there's something more. Life is so deep and diverse that there's always something to talk about. What are you excited about for season 10?
There are a few things, but I will lead with an ode to episode, I think, 220. I'm excited that we are back to more simple recording.
That's a good thing to be excited about.
It's definitely a little more on the petty side, but it's, as we mentioned, it's a lot of work to do what we did in season 9, although it's very powerful and eye-opening for me. I'm excited that we're going a little more simple on season 10, back to basics, if you will.
Yeah. Sean, what's been going on lately? Obviously, you and I have talked a few times, but why don't you catch our listeners up on all the stuff that's been going on in your life?
Yeah, for sure. It's been a busy couple of months like it always is, but this one's a little more unique than in the past. As some listeners know, especially from social media, right at the end of season 9, early May, my mom was diagnosed with a form of leukemia, and unfortunately, it's an aggressive acute myeloid leukemia, AML. So right away, throughout the entire break, it's been a lot of travel. She's down by Las Vegas, and I'm in Sacramento. So thankfully, it's easy to fly in and out, and it's not terribly expensive, but it can be. I was booking a lot of last-minute flights, and, that's always expensive. But basically, I've spent the last 2 months, working for maybe a week or 10 days and then coming to mom's for 4 to 5 days. She was in the hospital for almost 8 weeks straight, and it was important to me to just keep her company, show up long weekends and just visit a few trips out to her house, which is about an hour and a half away from the hospital. So a lot of travel, a lot of go, maintaining work and trying to be present for my mom when she doesn't live close. It just took a little extra effort, but it's been powerful, and she's home, and, we can certainly get into more details in future episodes, but currently brought her home last week, and I'm at her house now. I'm getting ready to head back to Sacramento soon, and we're thinking and hoping that she's a little more stable and she can continue her treatment and care from home.
How long was she away?
Just under 8 weeks, a couple days shy of 8 weeks.
Wow. Jeez.
The timing was good in terms of work was a little bit slow, and then you and I are in our off season. In that regard, it was nice that I was able to make it happen without too much disruption to what's normal or what other things I'm committed to.
Yeah. So real quick, when you say go, 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 and it's been really busy, like describe a week or two of back and forth. Like how often was the travel and stuff?
Sure. So I'd come home, say on a Tuesday night at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and then go right back into work at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. the next day.
Yeah.
It was a lot to juggle. Okay, when do I do my laundry?
Yeah.
When do I get that done so I can clean clothes for my next trip or clean clothes for work? So my mailbox, I keep a PO box. I don't have mail delivered to my house, and getting my mail, I can only do that Monday through Friday, or a very small window of time on Saturdays, and I work all day Saturday. So even that was like, oh crap, when do I get mail?
Yeah.
There was some downtime in the hospital, but nothing I could be productive with.
Right.
In the grand scheme of things, who cares, right? Dirty socks, dirty clothes, whatever. But in the middle of it,
Right.
It's kind of important to have.
Absolutely. Well, we're thinking of your mom, and we are hoping for the best and looking forward to future updates.
Absolutely. They are coming for sure. Tell me about you. I know you've had a lot going on. You kept things afloat at the end of our season 9, but you also had a bike ride. You were in California for like a month or what?
Yeah, I visited my family in California for a few weeks, and then I went to Mount Washington in New Hampshire, and I participated in a bike ride up there. Mount Washington is only 7.6 miles, but it was 4,600 feet of climbing in the 7.6, and it's known for the world's worst weather. And it certainly was darn bad. It was the worst weather I've ever been cycling in. It rained so hard. The ride took me 3 hours and 20 minutes, and it probably rained for half that time. And there were times in there that I've never seen it rain so hard like as it. And, it's a really narrow mountain road, and people are finishing ahead of me. I was the last one to finish. So every single rider finished ahead of me, and then their SAG vehicle drove them down. So you're not allowed to ride down. It's so steep. Like it would be really dangerous to ride down.
Sure.
So it's super narrow road, and like a cliff off to my right, and a car is coming down, and there's like 50 feet of visibility. And so headlights will just like appear, and then I have to scoot over a little bit to let them by. Yes, it was nuts. On top of that, unfortunately, Uncle Steve did not make it up the hill that day. And in the very beginning, my mirror was not adjusted. So I just figured it was being real quiet there behind me. And then I adjusted my mirror about a mile and a half in, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's nobody there. And it was the last thing to cross my mind that Uncle Steve wouldn't be there, because he's always just like, he's the strongest rider that we have.
Yeah.
And he's always there. So I rode pretty much all the ride solo, which is different than I normally do. But it was an amazing triumphant accomplishment at the top. So super, super cool.
I bet. Was it a day trip or a couple days? Or
I had to fly to Boston, and then we drove about 4 hours.
Oh wow!
To get there. It's pretty remote in New Hampshire. It's like a super tourist location. Okay. So, there was lots of people and stuff around, but in the middle of the woods. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you made it. Uncle Steve, okay today?
Yeah, he's fine. He just didn't have it that day. He was really confused about what happened and why. So that was a rough thing. Then from there, I flew straight down to family vacation in Mexico.
Can't beat that.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. But the day before I left, I was checking in my flight, and I realized I didn't have my passport. I'd been on the road for a week already, and I obviously was not at home. I couldn't get my passport. And so I called my neighbor, Joy, and she went into my place, grabbed my passport, and I had a layover in Dallas, Fort Worth. She mailed it to her friend who I'd never met before. And he met me in the departures like curb at Dallas Fort Worth Airport. I grabbed my passport and went in. I had to rebook all my flights, and I booked this Mexican airline from Dallas down to Puerto Vallarta. And I had a layover in Monterrey, Mexico, and zero English. And I speak zero Spanish. And so I was there for like 2 hours trying to get around and trying to get to the right gate and stuff. And I was communicating with people one sentence at a time over Google Translate. So I finally made it at like midnight and enjoyed 3 days in Mexico, and it was really awesome. If it weren't for Joy and her friends, I would not have made it down there.
That's pretty intense. But hey, speaking of, wasn't there something while you were in California about a suitcase?
That's an awesome story too, right? So, yeah, I was visiting my parents. I went down to ride with some folks in the Bay Area, 2.5, maybe 3 hours away. We got down there and realized I didn't have my suitcase, any of my clothes. I had my cycling shoes and my helmet, so I could like ride because we were riding that day. So all wasn't lost, and I was about to fly out within a day and a half. So I called my brother, and I was going to see if he knew like a high school kid who could drive, who wanted to make $200 the next day.
Yeah.
But it was graduation weekend, so nobody was available. Last ditch effort, I hailed an Uber from Chico, California. My brother met them at my parents' house, put my suitcase in the back seat. It was like 11:30 p.m., by the way. So wow. I went to bed. They drove down, handed the suitcase to the front desk at the hotel. I woke up in the morning and my suitcase was there.
The Uber driver basically only drove the suitcase.
Yeah, there was nothing else in his car.
So there's a lot of trust in, not only A, is it an expensive delivery service, but B, it's a matter of, your brother is talking to the driver like, hey, all we really need is a suitcase to go to San Jose or wherever it was. And that driver said, okay. And then everybody just trusted the fact that he was going to deliver.
Well, and my thought is, I wonder if you looked inside, like, what if there was like a ton of unmarked bills or like,
or a bomb.
Yeah, or anything, right? A bunch of drugs. I don't know.
Yep.
He doesn't know my brother or me or anyone in the situation. So yeah, it was. If you were him, would you look in the case to see what's in there?
I probably would have asked at the car, like, hey, I'll do it, but can you unzip it and show me just the way,
yeah,
that it's not weapons or, if I get pulled, I'm not going to prison or something.
Yeah, it was.
I would have thought about that in the moment to be fair, but now thinking about it in the moment right now, I think at the very least, said, show me what's in it before we drive off.
So if you ever get in that situation, you'll know exactly what you want to do.
Yep. Yeah.
In those moments, we tend to beat ourselves up like, I'm such an idiot. And certainly that is certainly a thought I still have. But I guess all we can do is learn from it and try not to let it happen again.
Well, Kyle, like always, never a dull moment, right? Whether we're in season or out of season. And like you, I am excited to be back in the saddle and creating and connecting with people, listeners, people that are going to join us for different conversations. So now it's time to get back to work.
Yeah.
Kyle, you said something in your talk about the bike ride that I think correlates well with the topic that is on my brain today. You talked about doing this ride and it being the most miserable weather, but you still did it. And I would argue you don't have to. It's not like you were competing for a gold medal or trying to win a grand prize of $5,000 or, there was no, you set out to do it for who knows why. And you did it for who knows why.
Right.
But despite the terrain, the incline, the weather, I'm willing to bet you're still proud of the fact that you did it. Now, that is slightly different than what I talked about in a recent column in terms of having fun. Fun is how we define it. And the reality of it is, Kyle, I felt slapped in the face not too long ago by a question that I often ask people. In my day job, I meet a lot of new hires, right? Essentially not every, but many new employees at the company I work for, I meet. And I'll hang out for a day, maybe 3 days. And then they go off to whatever store they're in. And, I might see them once a year, depending. So in an effort to make the connection, I'll ask people often, what do you like to do for fun? Or what are your hobbies? Blah, blah, blah. And I've always thought that's a fair question, right? Anybody can define what's fun for them. Some people it's reading a book. Some people it's snowboarding, right? It's different. But somebody asked me that, and I realized I didn't like that question. And so I wrote a whole column about it. And briefly, we can talk about that now, because ultimately everybody can define their own fun, right? What's fun is not going to be fun for me.
Right.
Like fun right now. I hate being in the rain.
The funny thing about that is, honestly, in the moment when the rain was coming down, like I could barely even see, and I was riding up the mountain in the middle of nowhere, I was like, this is what it's all about. Like, I was loving it in the very moment. I do love it afterwards, but in those moments, I was like, wow, this is incredible. I can't believe I get to do this,
Yeah.
And so, obviously somebody else is going to think something very different in those moments.
For sure. I'm willing to bet that train of thought is prevalent amongst the disabled community because, especially for those of us who have progressive conditions, we can't do tomorrow what we did maybe last year or 5 years ago. And that can be hard for many people to face. I thought of some silly examples when I was younger. I used to love paintball, go out and play flag with 20 friends from church or whatever it might be. And there's no way I would have fun doing it that way today. Not in the way I pictured it 15 years ago, right? Yeah. I think I still find a way to have fun. But the reality of it is, if somebody were to call me up tomorrow and say, hey, we got a paintball match Friday, are you coming? I don't know how quickly or slowly I would respond, right? And I started giving that some thought, because whether you're living with Friedreich's ataxia or you just break a bone or you're dealing with some other diagnosis, it's always going to be different. And I think the challenge that you and I are faced with, as well as every human, is finding ways to enjoy what you have and what you've been given and the opportunities in front of you.
Thinking about rare disease and like losing abilities over time and redefining fun all the time, it's really hard. to let go of what you used to really enjoy and mourning that all the time and trying to redefine what you think is fun. I was talking to a friend and she was talking about her kids. They're becoming teenagers and they don't like their mom anymore. So, or it seems like that sometimes, right?
Sure.
And she was saying that it's so hard. They don't want to do anything she says. That can be so hard to let go of when they were little girls and they were just cuddling and so nice and sweet and stuff. You know, what we were thinking about together is like, okay, it's going to be different, but it's going to be awesome. I mean, you have these two beautiful teenage girls. They're going to become something amazing. And watching that happen is going to be really cool. There are certainly, obviously, going to be rough patches in there. And the same with like defining fun, right? Like letting go of what we used to call fun and redefining it moving forward is a similar thing, I think.
Yeah, the challenge is in that redefining, right? We say it a lot. You say it a lot. You wrote about it in your book. Life is about how we respond to what we're up against, right? So even though the girls might change or we might change and our abilities change, it does mean we can't still enjoy what we have or what life offers. You can say it 100 different ways. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond or react. The reality of that is in the disability world, that's right in front of you all the time.
It's ever present. Yeah.
Especially in the midst of a progressive condition.
Learning to let go of the life we had and build what's in the future. Do you think that's a muscle that we can exercise? Do you think you get better at it over time?
I'm willing to bet there are plenty of people listening right now who are married or in a long-term partnership and they've had to change.
Right.
Because their partner was like, that annoys me, or, stop doing that, I hate that, or whatever it may be. And if they valued that relationship, they start putting the seat down, or they start doing that or the other. And right, it's silly. But I mean, just think about it in that context. If you value that relationship, you're going to make adjustments, right? And I think the challenge in my head right now is, if I still value enjoying what I have, I've got to find a way to enjoy a variation of a thing I used to enjoy. If I go back to the paintball example, and, I can't run around with the gun and paintballs and, jumping up and down, hiding behind, that's just not in the cards for me at this point. However, I think I still have fun protecting the flag. I don't have to run around. Sure, it might be a little slower of a game, because the action will take longer to get that far back. But I'm still going to have a great time. And I'm still going to shoot a lot of paintballs at whoever comes close to me,
Yeah. And you're still going to enjoy your time with your friends. You talked about also in that column playing mini golf.
Yeah.
And the fact that mini golf is not what it used to be for you, you swing and miss a lot on a putting green.
Yeah.
And
there are 8-year-olds making fun of me.
Yeah, but you also described just having a really great time with your friends and laughing and enjoying each other and making fun of yourself, whatever it is, even though it's not the same kind of fun that you used to have.
Yeah. Hearing you rephrase that a little bit, to me, I think the challenge is our expectations. If I went into mini golf expecting to win, then it would not have been fun. It would have been frustrating, embarrassing, and I would have been angry the whole time. So maybe that's part of the challenge for you, me, listeners. As things continue to evolve and our disability isn't going away, and in many cases, it's getting worse. maybe the challenge is to adjust our expectations. I didn't say lower, I said adjust them. Think about something different that's still important, but approaching them a little bit differently.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the challenge there is it might feel like you're lowering your expectations. And it's worth thinking about the difference between lowering and changing, because sometimes they might be the same thing depending on how you look at it. You know what? I think part of this conversation is that we're admitting it's a big challenge. Yeah. But it's something we can look at and think about and try to figure out how to incorporate into our lives.
I would argue trying to differentiate between lowering and adjusting needs two things. One, maybe a counselor. Two, another topic for another episode.
Yeah, big time. This conversation is to be continued. But for now, I think we need to wrap it up. We need to move on to thank you notes. At the end of every episode, we find great value in expressing a little bit of gratitude. Sean, who do you have to thank today?
Maybe a little silly, but Kyle, I'm saying thank you to my co-host, Kyle Bryant.
Oh, man.
I mentioned it in the beginning of this conversation, but the end of May, the end of season 9, I disappeared. I don't remember exactly how the conversations went, but I basically called you or texted you and said, hey, I'm out. I don't want to think about anything. I don't want to do anything. Don't call me. Don't email me.
Yeah.
For podcast stuff, as a friend, sure, call me all you want. But I wasn't going to be mentally in a place of responding and thinking ahead to our calendar and, just coordinating everything that goes into producing our show. And I'm grateful that you just ran with it. You're like, hey, no, don't even think about it. I'll take care of it. And thankfully it came at the end of the season and most of the hard stuff was in the bag. But it's a lot of little things here and there, even during our off time. And I'm grateful that I was able to lean on you and not one bit of me felt bad.
Good. I'm glad, because it's a true partnership. I mean, there's times when I need to do that too, so appreciate that.
What about you?
My thank you note goes out to my neighbor Joy and her friends Kanchana and Santhil, who were in Dallas. So Joy called them and was like, hey, I'm going to send this passport to you. Can you run it to the Dallas airport for me? They said, yeah, no problem. Like, that's no big deal. I don't have meetings in the morning, so I think they both work from home.
What a random ask.
Yeah. Santos showed up. He had a little FedEx package. He's like, why don't you just open that to make sure it really is in there? Certainly it was in there, and he couldn't be nicer. He's like, can I drive you to your next? Because my terminal was like across the airport. I had 5 hours or whatever, so I just did it on my own. But anyway, he was so kind. Next time I'm in Dallas, I'm taking them out to dinner. I would not have made it to hang out with my family. It was so valuable for me personally. And I have to thank Joy and Kanchana and Sento for that experience.
Something we say all the time. Life's better with other people. You can't do it on your own. So I'll echo the gratitude.
Sean and I both want to thank you for joining us here in season 10 and listening today. Go to our website, twodisableddudes.com. You can check out the show notes for this episode number 221. Find a link to Sean's column where he talked about how we each define fun. Share this with a friend. Subscribe. If you have a few minutes, leave a review. That would really, really help us out. Until next time, keep living with urgency. Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to donate.
Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app.